Awesome. Hi, everyone. How are you all doing today? Thank you so much for joining us at the Tell Your Story Facebook Live. Guess what? I have the Coach's Mentor online today. It is going to be an exciting time. I would even add that's going to be a supernatural time on today's Facebook Live. And we are still reviewing, discussing the book, Borderless Voice, The Power of Telling Your Story and Defining Your Identity. I want to say a big shout out to everyone. Definitely, there's been a spike and upsurge in the response and interest in the book through this series of Facebook Live I've been doing. So, a super shout out and thank you for everyone for being a part of this community. If you're just joining us very first time or you're stumbling across this particular broadcast after the replay, my name is Gbenga Ogunjimi. I am the author of the book, Borderless Voice, The Power of Telling Your Story and Defining Your Identity. And it is the book that we are trying to do a review for tonight. And so I hope that you enjoy this broadcast. So the reason I wrote the book is several reasons. Well, one of the reasons is in my work as a life coach, I have the opportunity for a lot of people to make me the custodian, advisor, coach of their stories. A lot of people entrust their vulnerability and their life journey that is embodied in their story to me to help steward that story and to help them how to use that story to get them to where they wanted to go to. So as a result of doing that, one of the things that happened was I started to realize the commonalities of the stories. And I started to see that there is a pattern with a transformation of the stories. So what I did was to extrapolate the common recurring themes and pattern of the stories and started with a compilation of short stories and took those stories and was able to piece them together and also extrapolate the principles I've identified in the book that was able to help people to take ownership of their story and make their story to be a change. And that resulted in the book, Borderless Voice, The Power of Telling Your Story and Defining Your Identity. So today we want to be talking with one of the people like you, or some of you who've been able to read the book, and I wanted to invite them online for them to come and share their review with us, what they saw about the book that interests them, what is it about the book that affected the way they told their stories, what was it about the book that is impacting the way they are telling the story of the community in which they are serving. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So very shortly, Coach Tilda will be joining us back again. And then we are going to open it all for conversation, for questions and answers. If you're joining us, let us know where you're joining us from. Please try to make a comment so we can be visible online. If you want to ask questions and you have specific questions for myself or for Coach Tilda, please go ahead and type in those questions. I'll be happy to share those questions or take those questions as we proceed. As we proceed. So that said, Coach Tilda, welcome once again. I'm so glad that this is happening.
Yes. Can you hear me and see me well now? Can you see me?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I hear you and
We're having a storm here, and so
I see.
we had a power surge that just went out. But I'm back on. I'm back on.
Great.
Okay.
Awesome. So, Coach Tilda, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself in your own words, and I'll try to introduce you in my own words.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction. I didn't know who you were talking about for a minute with that powerful introduction. You do it so well for everyone. You're truly a storyteller. But I am Tilda, better known as the coach's mentor to some. I am, I like to say that I'm a very diverse, multi-talented type of person. My journey, my story has been very colorful as I think about it. I'm a military brat. My father served in the military as I was growing up. So we had a tag name, Military Brat. Very orderly, very, uh, very precise childhood when you grow up in the military environment. I got to spend a lot of time around leaders and people that were in charge a lot in the military bases and things like that. Even my secular jobs, as I went on to higher education, graduated through high school and college, a lot of my jobs were unique as the fact that I was the first one in all of my jobs, I was the first one to ever hold those positions and to formulate and coordinate and write policies, procedures for jobs that I had in the secular world. And I'm five generations deep with ministry leaders. They were all men. So I broke the glass ceiling as the first woman to answer a call into ministry in my family after five generations. So that kind of tells you the strong will to go forth when you have, this purpose, this call on your life. You just have to push through some of the obstacles, and that's a whole nother book. But at the same time, to get where I am today, I started a nonprofit back in 98, 1998, a community grassroots nonprofit, and began to take that journey and started mentoring other women that were coming through that we served. And in doing that, I started coaching, mentoring, and training all three areas. And that led me to where I am today. Formal training with the coaching, becoming an international, national accredited training program. So it didn't come overnight, as you already know. It is a process. And I tell people, even in your life vision, your life purpose, there is going to be a process. It doesn't happen overnight. So that's short story of a long story of a process that's been taken, all these years in my life to really come, I say, full circle and really recognizing and knowing without a shadow of a doubt that I'm walking in my purpose. And
Wow.
that is helping other leaders identify their innate ability to do the same thing, to train and to mentor and to lead. And when they leave, I like to believe that because they allowed me to touch their life in some way, to mentor them and coach them, that they leave with three things. That's integrity, authority, and credibility.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much for that powerful introduction. So let me go ahead and introduce you in my own words.
Okay.
If I were to, with the story I just heard, if I were to choose one word
Yeah.
to define our guest today, Coach Tilda, that word would be leadership.
Mm.
Because Coach Tilda comes from five generation deep of leadership figures, and she had to give herself permission
Yeah.
to discover her own personal powers. And over the years of helping people in their leadership, she finally embraced her life's calling and mission statement, which is to tell people they are already leaders and to remind people how powerful they are.
Yeah. You hit
Yeah.
the nail on the head.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So, in the direction of power leadership,
Yeah.
what would you say is your superpower, and how are you using this superpower to change or shape the world?
Um, that was something that I had to identify within me, and not being, bashful or shamed, for how the tools that God gave me and how I'm able to pull out purpose in people. My superpower is actually helping people tap into who they are created to be. I give them a lot of aha moments
Mm.
with the fact that they often say, I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about it like that. They get new perceptions and they realize that God too has given them powerful gifts and tools to go out and help other people do what they're called to do.
I,
So I'm like a midwife, I help people birth their purpose.
mm,
Yeah,
amazing. I
yeah,
said it. I said it.
you said
She
it.
reminds you how powerful you are. And she shows you that leadership, one of the most profound uh, definition of a mentor. I guess you're also familiar with is, I believe it's Rob Proctor, and it said something to the ends like a mentor or a leader or coach. It's someone who sees in you what you cannot see in yourself and has the
Exactly.
power to bring it out of you.
Yes.
And I think that is exactly embodies your mission statement and the great work that you're doing in shaping the world. So
Even
when I,
as you say that, it gives me energy.
oh, that's amazing. I'm glad to
Yeah.
hear. I'm glad to hear that. Great. I'm glad to hear that. Because, a lot of people, and I think we're going to go further in this part of this conversation, but you and I operate in an industry where it is open to the world.
Yeah.
And it asks so little or nothing of you as a pre-qualification, but
Mhm.
then trust to you enormous responsibility to shape people's lives. I think that the coaches institute are amazing and necessary, but I also believe there's a strong component of call and purpose to
Yeah.
this type of work. You are either called to do it or not. You can acquire the technicality and the skill set to do it, and I think what separates people like you from other coaches are, can you identify the leadership and can you bring out the leadership? These are two different skill set, and I
Yeah.
think the embodiment of that is who you are. That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So when I first wrote the book, when I first launched the book,
Yeah.
People's Voice, I was on a mutual friend's show, their podcast, Bernice Loman, uh,
Yeah.
and I told my story and I talked about this book, and it was in the initial launch season. I believe it was a couple of weeks or month,
Uh-huh.
and I was saying, you know what, this is the book. I'm happy. I'm happy, and after you listen to me tell my story, one of
Hmm.
the things immediately you reached out and you bought the book,
Yeah.
and I wanted to hear from you. What was it about my story, my presentation on the podcast that resonated with you? And also reading the book, what
Hmm.
was it that continues to resonate with you?
Yeah. Um, when I heard your interview with Bernice Loman, the just you telling it, telling the story and about the book that was coming forth, and how you had written it. Listening to you were using my buzzword, you were using, one of my life words, and that's purpose. It was all about purpose, and you stirred my spirit. It's like I tell people, when people speak your language, and
Mm,
when people start speaking and you hear in their voice, you hear their voice, a sound, it's a different sound. There are people that are on your wavelength. That sound, the wavelength, wave that goes forth when sound is, is released. When I heard it, my radar went off when I heard your interview. And I said, I've got to get that book because he's speaking my language. I
mm,
understand what he's saying. And when I got the book, I have to tell you, I didn't put it down. I read it in 2 days. I would have read it all night if I hadn't fallen asleep. I would have read it in one day. But I read that book. It was so hard to put down borderless voice. The book is awesome. I don't want to get too deep. I know we're going to talk and conversate
Wow.
and share some points from what I got from the book. But when I heard you describe the book and a little bit of your story, it was just like I said, we're on the same wave. That's all I can say. And that sound just resonated with my spirit.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Amazing. And a lot of people ask me all the time is, Gbenga, how do I tell my story? I'm not a public speaker. I'm not some person into so many words or the use of words. I'm not a wordsmith. Uh,
yeah,
I don't even, I've not even come to the place where I think my story is that important.
right.
And what I love what you just shared is the fact that your story think about it as a choir
Uh-huh.
and think about it as a universal choir. And you
Mm,
might look at the choir that what is all these people doing on the stage, but
yeah,
every single one of them has a part to play for that song to be harmonious and come together.
uh-huh.
And that is how your individual story is. Without
Yeah,
you voicing out your story, the song is incomplete. The harmony, the sound is incomplete. And
yeah,
that your sound, your story is that missing piece to what the world is waiting for. So
right.
how do you get to that place is you have to come from the spirit. You
Yeah,
have to share your truth and you have to speak in your own voice. And I think a lot of people, the reason why our story don't stick is because before we even start telling the story, we self-edit the story so many times. And we ask, oh, do they want me to speak in that language? Do they want me to speak in that tone, with that personality? But just when you come from the spirit, you touch your people, your audience as a spirit and as the spirit. And what
right.
you realize is that all along you're part of the same tribe, you're part of the same community. And the reason why you've not activated that community is because you just haven't opened your mouth and told your story. So, case in point, I went on Bernice's show. I
Yeah.
told my story. We are the same tribe, but we don't know each other. The
Mm-hmm.
moment I told my story, you said, "Whoa, that is one of my people,"
Yes,
and I felt it too, and like that is one of my people.
yes,
So, and I'm so glad that you said that.
yeah.
So, what about the book that has shaped and impacted the way you are telling your story now, and the way you have come to see and appreciated your story?
I'm more. I think it's a little bit what you just. I'm more detailed. I would just give a little highlight. When sharing my story sometimes, and would hold back. Oh, people don't want to hear that part, or would skip things that I felt like weren't significant. But I'm finding out the part that I would skip sometimes that I now tell. That's the part that a lot of people make remarks on, like,
Mm,
oh, I didn't know that you had experienced that, or I didn't
mm,
know, that happened in your life, and it becomes, very. The more you tell it, the more I know for me. The more I tell my story, the more comfortable I've become with telling the parts that I used to skip a lot. I didn't want it to be so, what's the word, so challenging. I wanted to encourage people, and I wanted them to see the results and hear about the results and the accomplishment more than the process.
mm,
Yeah. And so I was leaving out the hard parts of the process sometimes. And with the book, when I read your book and how you break it down, that voice is your brand. Your voice is your purpose.
mm.
I was starting to understand. I'm starting to understand more and more. And with Borderless Voice, it really gave me confirmation about the power of my story and not to leave out the hard parts of the process.
Wow.
So the book really gave me confirmation. Go ahead and talk about those processes sometimes,
Mm,
even though they weren't, all shiny and like gold, and there were challenges and they were painful. Still share it because that's part of my brand, and people connect even more when you tell those parts.
mm.
Yeah.
Wow. As a life coach, I believe that you are a custodian of stories,
Hmm.
and a lot of people entrust their stories with you.
Yes.
And they share those stories, some of them we have never spoken to a soul about.
Hmm.
Even couples who haven't even told their story to each other would,
So true.
yeah, and would come to you and share their stories with you. And I told a few of those stories in the book. Um, if there's any stories of those books that come to mind, you can tell us one of those stories. But I wanted to ask you that as a life coach, how has Borderless Voice really, really help you to really help to serve your community um, by helping them to give themselves permission to tell that the process
Yeah.
of the story that no one want to talk about.
Matter of fact, Benja, I'm actually referring your book as a resource
Wow.
when people come into sessions and they struggle about their story and they want to hide their story. They don't want to tell it. They don't want people to know. They themselves don't want to face their story
Mm.
and what they've been through. I'll quickly refer Borderless Voice to them.
Wow.
That's
Thank
that's the power of being in a coaching session and being able to. I feel like Borderless Voice is a strong resource for
Wow.
my coaching business,
Wow.
for the people that I actually coach.
Wow.
Yeah. And some coaches struggle with finding their clarity
Mm.
sometimes before they even launch their coaching business and struggle with their story. I refer Borderless Voice out because that's how powerful I think the book is.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yes,
So now you heard it. It's called Borderless Voice,
yes,
and you should go ahead and get it yourself. You can do so on my website. I'm going to put the information up, Gbenga.org, and it's going to take you to Amazon
yes,
to get the book. If you read the book, please review the book. If you want to come on to the platform to tell your story and experience with the book, send me an email or drop me a message on social media. I'll be very happy and excited to bring you online to be able to share your particular story with Motherless Voice. So, Coach Tilda, let's stay a little bit about the story, the process of the
hmm
story.
hmm
Um, I wrote in the book. So, in my coaching process or program,
yeah,
I organize these intensives,
hmm
and it's a 6 weeks long intensive.
right,
And sometimes people will take me on or we'll work together for even an extended period of time,
hmm
sometimes 3 months, 6 months, a year. And a lot of people will come to me about their story, and they are waiting for me to say something and pivot the narrative and change the narrative and just make their story become brand new.
yeah,
And sometimes they get a little bit underwhelmed, even somewhat disappointed when I say, you know how we're going to start this process? Very soon, we're going to hang up and you're going to take a pen, you're going to take a notebook,
yes, yes,
and I need you to write your entire life story.
yes,
Then, after doing that exercise, then come to me. Then
hmm
we'll continue the process. Oh, you don't understand. I understand my story. I can tell it to you now. I say, I know. The reason why I'm letting you to do that is because the way you've told your story over the time has rewired the way you see and think about yourself.
Yes.
There are so many blind spots that you're not even recognize, you're not even seeing. And that breakthrough will start when you start the process of telling and writing out your personal narrative. And you will be pleasantly surprised and say, wow, is this myself?
Yes.
Is this what I've accomplished? Is this what has overcome? Is this what, and a lot of people have found clarity with that. One of the stories in the book is several stories in the book, but I remember the story of Sandra, the fashion psychologist.
That's the one that I was gonna kind of mention.
Okay, you know what?
Yeah, that's my favorite one.
Let me let you go ahead. Why didn't you tell us your what stuck out with you with that story?
Let me recall a little bit. It's been a while since I read the book, but at the same time, her story, how it evolved, from her not even starting out with the fashion, I believe it was, and how she ended up going into the fashion industry was so powerful to me. Of where she found it was just the opposite of where she started. I think that resonated with me, and it kind of like I could relate. I could relate because her journey and her process ended up where you wouldn't think that it would end up, and how it did benefit her. You know, the prosperity and the brand and her purpose all ended up in this fashion industry where she didn't necessarily start.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what was interesting with that process, Coach Tilda, was she, when we started to work together, she took a leap of faith and without knowing anyone, and she resigned and moved to DC from Boston. And in the very first week she moved, the apartment she was staying in, one of my clients was living in that apartment, and they started this little chat together. So, you know what, I just moved here. I don't know anyone here. So,
wow.
So she said, in that case, you should talk to my coach. And so we got talking. And in our very first session, again, I said, go write this story.
Yeah.
And first I said, tell me the story. And then I thought she was a little bit defensive and she wouldn't quite go to the vulnerable, emotional part of it.
Yeah.
And before I kept talking, there was a visceral reaction. And she said, you know what, this is too much, because she was physically emotional about just thinking about the story. But guess what? That was the greatest breakthrough. She's been running away all her entire life.
Yes.
And the moment she did that and she had the breakthrough and this release and clarity, everything shifted for her. And then she realized that our story is actually the conduit to our wealth and prosperity, and what she already has. So how has the book really shifted for you in terms of yourself and your client about monetizing what you already have, whether it's your purpose, whether it's your gift, whether it's your story, what is in it natural to you? How does the book really help you with the monetization of it?
I believe, and what I'm seeing too from clients and my coaches as well, without them truly knowing their voice, knowing their purpose, and being more than 110% sure, solid sure. A lot of things that I see them trying and going around, beating around the bush is what I say, without truly being um, in their purpose and not speaking their voice. It doesn't sit well with them. There's still always, I observe, there's always some turmoil, and it doesn't prosper. They don't prosper well financially. They don't monetize well when I see people not truly walking out their purpose. But when they get to the place and tap into purpose, I start to see the process come into like alignment.
Mm.
They work better. They think better. They're more clear about their business decisions. Does that
Mm.
make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And they make better, they have ideas. The visions flow.
Mm.
And those ideas and visions and concepts and dreams and all those things, they start to fall together where they really get a return.
Mm.
Monetize when they start monetizing from a place of purpose.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, from a place of purpose. I have started seeing people now where um, prosperity is starting to flow. It's starting to come to them
Mm.
because they're clear about who they are and they speak with purpose. They know their voice.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's amazing. That's
and that
amazing.
happened with me first. That had to happen with me first
Mm.
before I could reach out and help others at a place
Mm.
where God was helping me to calling me to help. I
Mm.
had to first get into that alignment and not be ashamed of my process
Wow.
and the parts of the story that I wanted to hold back.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well, for anyone listening, I think if there's one takeaway that we've been coming back to on this call is this idea that there is a public story that you've told about yourself and everybody know about. And
yeah,
that story might be powerful or great or not so much powerful, but there's this one story that you haven't told anyone about.
that's it.
And the idea we're even talking about it, you know what that thing is. And
Hmm.
you've made a commitment to yourself that no one is going to go to this aspects of my story with me, or this aspect of my identity, of myself with me, because it's a vulnerable experience for you.
Yeah,
And that, if I allow me to submit to you, it's your defining moment.
yeah,
And it's a gift God gave to you, whether it is beautiful, whether it is not beautiful, whether it is powerful, whether it is painful,
yeah,
however it came, what has happened. But what are
yeah,
you going to do with what happened? They say life it's about 10% what happened and
yeah.
90% what you do with it.
What you
So
do?
I need you all to think about that and really ask yourself, what is one story I haven't told anyone yet?
Wow, that's powerful.
Just that is
That's
it.
powerful.
That is
And
it.
and then with you saying that, it makes me think about the fact that you hold something that no one else holds, and that's your story.
Hmm.
That is the piece that makes you powerful, where nobody else can get that power but you, because
Hmm.
it's yours. It's yours, and nobody. So that's the mindset I
Hmm.
had to come into, and even reading the book Borderless Voice, it just confirmed that this is mine,
Hmm.
and this is my power. This is my identity. Nobody else has this DNA, my
Hmm.
story. Nobody
Hmm.
can tell it like I can tell it.
Hmm.
It's not going to sound, even my voice. Nobody can sound like me when they tell it. Only I have that sound to my story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so, is there any other book that or authors, maybe speakers, that the book reminds you of?
Um, I I have several that come to mind. Miles Monroe is a
Okay.
great mentor of mine,
Hmm.
and let me see. I'm trying to think of the title of one of his books. I think it's the meaning of purpose, or one of those purpose books that he wrote. Um,
Okay.
made me think about Borderless Voice. Made me think about one of his Miles Monroe, but a couple of his writings came to mind when I was reading Borderless Voice. Um,
Nice.
and he had so many famous quotes and concepts that he taught about purpose. So the book took me back into some of the readings I had done by Miles Monroe.
Wow.
He's one of my great mentors from afar.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's amazing. That's
because
amazing.
he taught, he's a great teacher on purpose, about life purpose and finding life purpose. And I love to hear him say that, the graveyard was the richest place, the wealthiest place in the whole world,
Mm,
because so many people are born, live, and they die, and they take purpose back to the grave.
mm.
So it's the same thing with our voice and how you talk about the borderless voice. If we don't sound our voice in the world, and we don't speak up and tell our story, the same thing happens. That sound dies with us. Nobody ever hears it.
Hmm.
And every opportunity that we miss in not telling our story, just wonder how many people we really didn't help by not telling it.
Wow. Well,
Yeah,
thank you for sharing that. And I'm humbled that this book has been elevated to,
to Miles Monroe.
yeah, I'm humbled. I'm really, really humbled. Uh,
Yes.
because I'm a student of his as well. Um,
Okay.
thank you for sharing that. So, what questions do you have for me? Just like, when you're reading a book, it's like, you know what? I wish this author can come right now and try to tell me what I'm trying to say, or I think they should have said it differently, or, I didn't quite get it. So, do you have any of those moments that you thought, if I can just get Gbenga right now to come explain it,
Yeah.
elaborate more? Yeah.
I'm gonna ask you one that I ask a lot with my clients, and that is, what question do you wish people would ask you more? What one question? What's the takeaway? Like when you do presentations on your book, and you do workshops, and you do speaking engagements,
Mm.
what one question do you wish people would ask?
Wow. Wow.
Oh, wow.
That is a powerful one. I wasn't I wasn't even mentally thinking in that direction. Um, that is a powerful one. You
Yeah.
know, I think the question I would want people to ask me more
Yeah.
is, if people can ask, if I'm in a position where I can influence the question, and people
Hmm.
can ask me less of the outcome and more of the process.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think like my journey of giving myself permission, my vulnerabilities, my humanity, um, and just giving me the opportunity to open that. I
Ah.
think for me, I can be more authentic, because if you ask me for my strength, what I've
Hmm.
produced, what I've created,
Yeah.
uh, it is not as authentic because I've done that. It's shiny, it's beneficial, it's an accomplishment. But let's take the curtain off that process and see my own struggle and vulnerability. And I think that is where community starts. And that is where
Wow.
people see each other in each other's stories and the shared humanity that we have.
Yes.
Example, when I was writing the book, when someone asked me that similar question about how I got to write the book, and I said,
Yeah.
you know what? I never saw myself as an author.
Uh-huh. Me
Um,
neither.
I never, as a matter of fact, I look at people who've written a book and I said, you wrote a book? I'm telling you, you mean you wrote a book, an entire book? How did you do? How can anyone write a book? I can't even. My mind couldn't just comprehend that.
Uh-huh.
So I had the opportunity to tell my own struggle of me writing the book. I used to tell people I used to contribute to the Huffington Post,
Uh-huh.
and I would overcompensate. I would write extensively. I have
Wow.
an entire team of editors that I was paying on staff to just write an article.
Yeah.
And a part of me would tell myself, why didn't you just write your book? I would use that to explain myself away and say, I'm working hard. I'm
Yeah.
providing great content. That is
Right.
also a content. But it's
Yeah.
not a book. Just write it. you're already, so I wouldn't just give myself permission, and I had to overcome that. So I think the process, more than the outcome, I
Yeah,
think talking about that.
you would love to talk about. See, that's me too. When I understood that the process really had a lot of value in it,
Mm,
instead of trying to skip over that part, I'm like,
hmm.
people don't really want to hear about all the things that happened, and, the good, the bad, the ugly, and things like that. Oh, I just thought of the book too, Understanding Your Potential by Miles Monroe.
Okay,
It's one of
nice,
the books that I thought about when I read Borderless Voice.
nice.
Yes, I just thought about the title. It just popped up in my brain.
Oh,
But
great.
but how old were you, Benja, when you really started having, I guess, awareness
Mm.
about the fact that there was a borderless voice within you?
Well, when I was in the university,
Mhm.
which was late teens, early 20s, all through
Yeah.
that process. And the university I went to was overseas in Nigeria.
Uh huh.
And it was not the best environment for learning,
Mhm.
in the sense that the country was growing, the school was growing. There's a lot of chaos on campus,
Mhm.
everyone trying to find themselves. So there are very few options you have
Uh
for
huh.
leadership development. You can
Okay.
go to the student union and think about them as unions protesting in Latin America, and
Mhm.
we can burn it down, like this kind of Black Panther, kind of militant, like, okay, what's going on? You know, that was so highly almost militarized.
Yeah.
And I was, I don't think I have the skill set or the passion
Yeah.
to be involved in part of this. I was like, okay, what can I do to express my voice?
Mhm.
I went into nonprofit.
Okay.
When I started nonprofit on campus, there wasn't like a leadership, there wasn't like a structure. We just got together and just did what we have to do.
Uh huh.
When I graduated, I think that should be around 21, 22-ish. Uh, and I was like, I need to get to a career path. And I told that story because that
Okay.
was when I found a mentor and I
Yeah.
found a coach, and they spoke life into me, and they helped to give me a language for my path.
Mhm.
So late teens, early 20s, start getting me into this idea of me finding my voice. As a matter of fact, the period of 21 to 23, um, I call that finding my voice, period.
Okay. Okay.
And that brought me in contact with this amazing woman that I just got out of university. I was seeking a career path, if I should continue to go nonprofit, or I should explore this thing called for profit.
Yeah.
But I have never been exclusively financially motivated or driven.
Mhm.
I think it has to have purpose and impact into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't even know what I was looking for.
Mm.
I can experience it on the inside, but I couldn't articulate what I was looking for.
Right.
And she come onto the television and she was telling her story and she was sharing her vision. And you just as you said when I came to Bernie's show, you said that man speaking my language.
Yes.
That was exactly what happened to me. Like that woman
Woman is
is
speaking.
speaking my
I
language.
hear a sound. Yeah. I
Yes,
hear a drum beat. Yeah.
I did. I
She's
did.
calling.
And
You were calling my name.
I heard it loud and clear. And
Yeah.
that process, that conversation, pretty much brought us to this particular show and brought us to where I am today.
Wow.
And I think that, as we said, that definition of a mentor and a coach being someone who sees in you
Yeah.
what you don't even see in yourself, and they
Right.
have the power to bring it out of you. So
Right.
that was the same transformation that I experienced when I was in my early 20s.
That's interesting. That's thank you for sharing that. Um, that makes me think about the fact too. Even though I struggle with avoidance of telling a lot of the process in my story, I had great mentors and coaches as well along the way, even when it got hard in the process. A lot of great leaders that were able to coach me and mentor me, encourage and push the envelope,
Mm.
with me. And I'm so thankful now. You know,
Yes.
several are resting in heaven, as I say,
Yes.
resting. But they left, they left me with powerful pieces to go on and share my story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us more about the work that you do at the institute? Um, is it the 4PC, the coaching institute?
Okay.
Tell us more about what is going on, what is coming up, and any stories in your community you want to share with us.
Okay. I appreciate that. Well, People Coaching Institute, monthly, I offer training. We are privileged to offer coaching training for leaders that want to uh, become certified professional life coaches. My targeted population is nonprofit and ministry leaders, as well as corporate leaders, business leaders that want to come and become certified. We were able to get a national accreditation through the ICF, which is the largest coaching association in the world. I get to communicate on a weekly basis with coaches all around the world, 140 countries, over 140 countries. So we're international as well. I knew at an early age that my purpose would be called not just to the nation, the country of United States of America, but international to other
Mm.
places as well. So I get to train great leaders in different countries, from different countries that come to the training. Train on site, online, um, one on one, and there's a self study training as well. So there's 4 platforms that I've been able to put together for people to come and get the accreditation and I say the credibility.
Mm.
And coaching is a powerful tool. It's a powerful tool, and I tell the leaders that I get the privilege to train that you're just going to acquire a very powerful tool to make you even more powerful as a leader.
Mm.
Yeah.
And your coaching program, can people, because you work internationally as well, can people, what would be the information to pass out to people who might not be in your state or in the country that want to be a part of your coaching community?
Yeah, there's a website
Okay.
they can connect with me on, and that is p4cinstitute.com. www.p4cinstitute.com. P4C is all one word. .com. Yes, that's it. Hmm.
Awesome. So you can connect with Coach Tilda at p4cinstitute.com for our coaching program. And also, I believe that include certification for those coaches who want to be certified as a coach.
Right. When they complete the training, and we do a 3-day intensive training,
I said.
and after those 3 days, you are certified by a national accredited program, training program.
That's
So
amazing.
you do receive your certification. It's
That's
a
great.
lifetime certification.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. That's great. And so, one of the last questions I wanted to ask you about storytelling and life coaching.
Yeah.
And since you came in contact with Borderless Voice, what would you say to new coaches or existing coaches who are not using stories as much? And how have you come to even use stories as much? Or if any story that come to your mind that you have witnessed their transformation in your community that you want to share with us?
I I've witnessed many, many, many. I believe, Ginger, that once someone discovers their borderless voice, the coaches especially, that they have jumped over hurdles.
Mm.
We talk about roadblocks in coaching,
Mhm.
and a coach that's able to jump over and conquer their roadblocks, whether it be fear, procrastination, perfectionism. Your story doesn't have to be perfect. Once they realize and they master the roadblocks in their own life with their own story, and they can tell it with boldness and stand and not be ashamed of it and draw back from it. I've seen coaches really go forth and reach out to masses of people and help a lot of people. One of my coaches in particular, Cheryl Pelote Williamson, that lives in Texas, out of Dallas, Texas. She's a shining example of how she tells her story when she has opportunity on any platform. And she tells it without shame and has reached around the world helping many, many people. She's produced over 100 and some best-selling authors.
Wow.
Yeah, she runs a nonprofit. Uh, she has been a film producer, writer. She's written books herself. Just to see the magnitude of how she's taken her story, and now she knows that borderless voice that she has,
Wow.
and how she has made an impact and still making impact. And I tell her all the time, you're just beginning, but she's already made major impact in the world.
Wow.
And she's just one of the coaches that have been through P4 Coaching Institute. Um, So I'm just very proud. I'm like a mother bird,
Mm.
when they leave out of the training, the P4 training, I see them and I say, you're launching now, you're flying out of the nest.
Wow.
So continue to go be great.
Awesome. Awesome.
They're already great when they come to me. But
Wow.
when I release them, I always say, continue. Go back now and continue to go be great.
Wow.
And I sit back and hear the success stories.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
remember what I said, that the way I would describe you is to
Uh-huh.
keep reminding your people how powerful they already are.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. So what I
That
want
makes
to
me
do,
that makes me happy.
oh, great.
You
I'm
know?
glad to hear that. I'm glad
Yeah,
to hear
that's my happy place. That's where I find joy. A lot of my joy is seeing the success of others.
that. Great.
Um, God just gave me a supernatural level of being able to celebrate people
Wow.
without any jealousy, envy, strife, none of that stuff.
That's
I
good.
don't feel any of that. When
That's
I
good.
see you succeed, that makes me happy.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So I want to, for the final thought, I'm going to go ahead and I want us to leave the audience with some insight around the subject of purpose.
Mhm.
And if you can, I wanted you to think about if you can tell someone who is trying to find their purpose, who's
Mhm.
trying to live in their purpose, who's struggling with their purpose after finding it,
Yeah.
what you're going to say to them. But what I want to say is, if you're in any of those categories of you finding purpose,
Mhm.
or you found it, you're trying to leave it, or you
Mhm.
found it, you didn't like what you found.
That's a good point. That's another show. That's another broadcast.
and and you're struggling with this thing that you found. So what do you do? So what I would say to you is this: start. I want you to commit to telling your story.
Mhm.
I want you to be the evangelist, the advocate, the speaker, the marketer of your own story. If there is anything you do going forward, if there's only one thing you can do that's going to significantly impact and create a ripple effect in every aspect of your life,
Mhm.
it's you giving yourself permission, embrace that story, and commit to telling their story. Coach Judy just told about the story of one of our clients who started by just embracing one particular story, and that kind of opened up all these worlds of opportunities. Once you start to tell your stories, your truth, several things would happen. Number one is you start to gain clarity around your story, why that happened. And you beginning to see the purpose, why that story experience isolated everyone else, but came to you. And that is going to spring you into what is the big overarching purposes. That's what I have for you. So Coach Tudor, over to you. Someone who is trying to find their purpose.
Yeah.
They found it, they're trying to live it, or they found it, they didn't like what they found.
So I'm gonna piggyback off what you said by they found it, but they didn't like what they found. But I want them to remember that their purpose is their power. That their purpose can unlock prison doors. Where we sometimes end up being bound and it feels like we're weighed down with chains. If they stick with the purpose, if they stick with the voice that God has given them, they will become more of a creator in the atmosphere than being a chameleon that just changes colors and flips, from side to side, no matter what environment you are. You will become the ruler and authority over the environment where you are. You'll begin to see things change for you.
Awesome.
Do you want to be the thermostat or the thermometer? The thermostat determines what temperature the environment is going to be. And then the thermometer just goes along with whatever you put up there. It's going to be that number, whatever you dial it to.
Wow.
But me personally, I love creating. I love being the creator of my environment.
Wow.
And I want other people to know that they can do the same thing. And with that type of power, that you can move and change the atmosphere, you can change the color, you can change the sound, that will bring you into a place that will bless your life like you will never believe.
Awesome. Well, that it is. Thank you so much, Coach Tilda Whitaker. I'm so honored that you grace us your presence and tell us your story and the amazing work that you're doing. So I made a commitment to you that this conversation would be supernatural when we started. Do you think it was supernatural?
You just took the thought out of my mind. This has been a very powerful conversation. Yes.
Amazing. Well, Thank you very much, everyone, for hanging out with us. Drop us your comment if you catch it in the replay, and feel free to send both of us messages on social media. And we are going to be back next week. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
You're welcome.